Will the Jack Smith 2-volume report concerning his prosecution decisions and conclusions concerning Mar-a-Lago and the D.C. election interference criminal cases against Donald Trump, will they be published to the American people, or will Donald Trump succeed in having them blocked? We now have some brand new developments. We have a motion that's been filed by Donald Trump's two co-defendants in the Mar-a-Lago case in front of what they, I assume, believe is a friendly Judge Cannon to try to block the release of the 2 volumes over 400 or 500 pages of documents that Jack Smith has delivered to Merrick Garland. And then we have separately, we have Donald Trump having reviewed that information over the last several days, sending a letter demanding that Merrick Garland not publish the report. And you can imagine why. I'm on MeidasTouch Network and Legal AF. This is Michael Popok. Let's get right down to it. Roll up our shirt sleeves on this fast-breaking and developing story. On Monday, we learned from Carlos de Oliveira and Walty Nauda's filing in Mar-a-Lago before Judge Cannon that there was we're on the precipice of having this 2-volume report, which the special counsel is obligated under federal law to prepare at the conclusion of his investigation to deliver to the Attorney General. And then the Attorney General is obligated to publish it if he believes it's in the public interest. That is the law, a series of laws that is completely ignored by Walt Nauda, Carlos de Oliveira, and even Donald Trump and his lawyers, who will be in the Department of Justice in about a month or so. So you have these twin issues all coming together. They obviously feel they're working to whipsaw the Department of Justice. I'm sure Donald Trump and his lawyers are behind Walt Nauda's filing before Judge Cannon. They've always seen Judge Cannon as a friendly forum for them. She's been willing to interfere with federal law, constitutional law, and the Department of Justice in the past, even though she's been reprimanded by the 11th Circuit on 2 separate occasions. So they know that she's sort of a weak gatekeeper, and she's a good target for them. And so they have filed their motion there, and then they've cross-referenced this letter, this 15-page letter or so, which they've attached as an exhibit, which is Donald Trump's lawyers' letters to Merrick Garland. Now, the premise is the couple of big things to take away from this boil down right away. There is no requirement under the Department of Justice statutes that regulate them and regulate the special counsel position that he show a draft before he provides it to Merrick Garland. It's just part of policy and procedure within the Department of Justice that they have done that. For instance, Robert Hur, when he did his big 400-page report against Joe Biden's handling or mishandling of classified documents while he was post-vice president, gave his lawyers a copy. They were able to prepare a counter letter that got published as well. So that's what they sort of do. And so somewhere between the 3rd of January and the 6th of January, Jack Smith in Washington allowed Todd Blanche and Emil Bove and I guess John Sauer, the lawyers for Donald Trump, who will also be in his administration, to take a look at, in a closed lock room without any electronic devices, the 2 volumes of material. They didn't like that, of course. They wanted to have it, electronically and be able to search through it. But that, of course, was not part of the deal. In it, we know from other sources and reporting, it is, of course, a stinging rebuke of Donald Trump, his handling of documents in Mar-a-Lago, the role of the co-conspirators, his role in the election interference campaign, spearheading that in Jan 6th of 4 years ago, and all of that. We've seen a lot of this material in the filing that Jack Smith made a couple of months ago to Judge Chutkan, in which he laid out all the reasons why immunity should not dismiss the indictment that he had, the new indictment that he had filed. But, listen, every special prosecutor, every special counsel has issued a report. They're usually 300 to 400 pages in length. This one's probably double that, given there were 2 prosecutions. And it is part and parcel with the job. It goes with the job. You're going to do a closeout memo and you're going to deliver it to the Attorney General, and the Attorney General is going to make it public if he finds it's in the public interest. Now, their argument in the letter that I've just read is sort of their argument before Judge Cannon, which is Jack Smith is unconstitutionally appointed, illegally appointed, because the Constitution precludes an attorney general appointing a special counsel, it has to go through a Senate confirmation process. That's news to anyone who's followed 200 years of federal jurisprudence, including the United States Supreme Court. Judge Cannon came up with that great idea, and that's up at the 11th Circuit, still on appeal, involving Oliveira and Walt Nauta, and we'll get an answer to that hopefully before the inauguration. That's the first thing. And then they attack the funding. They say that the funding was illegal. He spent $20 million over a 3-year period, half of which I think was for security because of Donald Trump's frequent attacks on the special counsel, his family, his office, the FBI, and the like. But they're saying the whole funding is illegal because the apportionment and the appointment and the apportionment provision of the Constitution means that you have to keep going back to the Congress for funding, and they didn't approve this particular funding. Well, they just don't like that the funding was already approved back in the 1990s, and it's still been on the books since then, never been rescinded by Congress. But because they had MAGA Congress control, they were like, well, no, Congress has to reapportion and reapprove funding. That's wrong as well. Those are the two thrusts of the main argument. And then it's because of the immunity that arose after Donald Trump's election, which led the special counsel under the Office of Legal Counsel Guidelines, which is sort of their in-house Supreme Court that tells the Department of Justice what they can and can't do. And because of guidelines and memos there, the special counsel, as we know, dismissed the case against Donald Trump in Mar-a-Lago, D.C. election interference case in Washington, and withdrew the Trump involvement in the 11th Circuit brief. Now, that doesn't mean he was, as they said in their letter, exonerated. I'm going to read to you from the most incredible parts of the letter in a minute. But that doesn't mean that Donald Trump was exonerated. Immunity doesn't make you innocent. Immunity is a defense. It basically says you committed the crimes, but you have immunity from prosecution because of your unique status of being, in this case, the President of the United States under the Supreme Court's immunity decision. It's not an exoneration mechanism, as they have alleged it. But of course, the entirety of this letter, which is the basis for trying to get Judge Cannon to step out of bounds again and interfere with federal law, which she should not do, and hopefully the 11th Circuit will have to deal with that issue, or they may have to deal with that issue in the future. But the whole thing is just a stitch together of Donald Trump's best of, worst of social media posts, lawfare, political hacks, completely exonerated, lawless, politically, out of control, special counsel. It's just a complete sane washing of everything bad that Donald Trump has done to attack Jack Smith and his team. There's no law here. They completely ignore the law that requires the production of this report by the special counsel. It's his delivery of it to the Attorney General and his the Attorney General's review of it to determine whether it should be published in the public interest. And now there's this emergency motion, which we'll be following, which was just filed on Monday before Judge Cannon. And the special counsel has responded and said to Judge Cannon, we're not publishing it any minute. It's not going to be done before Friday. There's plenty of time. We want time to argue it if you're inclined to do anything about this. And I'm not sure that the special counsel, that the judge here, Judge Cannon, has any power or jurisdiction over this particular issue. She may think she has, and that's going to be the problem. Now, if she tries to block it as it relates to those two, Oliveira and Waltine Nauta, then there's going to have to be a whole emergency appeal to the 11th Circuit to try to undo that, while Jack Smith continues to urge the Attorney General to release it before the inauguration. And that's going to be the fight. Now, Merrick Garland's a tricky person to anticipate what he's going to do. What he should do is, what the lawyers for Donald Trump have said is, if you're going to release it, then release this letter and our criticism at the same time. It's effectively been released because it was filed along with, as is all of a sham here, it was filed in the Florida case before Judge Cannon. So that's already out there. Now the report's got to come out. I mean, they have their one-sided version here. We need to see the actual report. So what Merrick Garland should do is release the report. A little redaction here and there, sure. But he should release the report. All of the arguments that this interferes with president-elect transition immunity is ridiculous. There is no president-elect immunity. That he somehow has immunity from having the report published. No, he has immunity from prosecution and conviction. That's what the Supreme Court said. Not immunity from having the final closeout report. They say, oh, he'll be impaired and he'll suffer public censure and public attack because of it. That's already done. He's already a 34-count felony convicted person in New York. People knew what they voted for, at least the ones that voted large enough numbers to get him elected. And they know that he was indicted. And the only reason the indictments were dismissed were not because he was exonerated, but because he got immunity, an immunity gift from the United States Supreme Court. So we got these two wheels that are spinning here that we're following here on MeidasTouch at Legal AF. One is, what is Judge Cannon going to do with the emergency motion followed by his co-conspirators about the release of the report? Can she do anything? And what's the 11th Circuit going to do on an emergency application by Jack Smith? And what is Merrick Garland going to do, right? Because they can't sue to stop it. I mean, they could try to take an emergency application to the United States Supreme Court before Friday, and John Roberts would be the first stop on that train. But I don't see them doing that. I think they're trying to embarrass Merrick Garland, undermine the report. They were able to get their critique out before the report was published. And, I have another criticism. You didn't have to give them access to the report. You could have just published the report. Okay. There's nothing in the statute that says you got to give the other side ability to comment, file lawsuits, and file self-serving letters. But, this is the one problem Democrats have. We're civil. We're polite. We're honorable. And we bend over backwards to do things that we probably shouldn't do. And now we're stuck with competing emergency motions and demands, and they got their letter out first and all of that. So I think we're going to, in the next 48 to 72 hours, there's going to be a lot to report on here on Legal AF and the MeidasTouch Network. Follow me, Michael Popok. I got a show called Popok Live, and I'll cover this tonight as I know more information. 8 p.m. Eastern Time on the MeidasTouch YouTube channel. Wednesdays and Saturdays, Legal AF, the podcast. And then we got a whole new Legal AF, the YouTube channel, just for moments like this to cover this kind of fast-breaking story at the intersection of law and politics. Come over there, hit the blue subscribe button, and help us build to our 500,000 goal. So until my next reporting, I'm Michael Popok.
Love this video? Make sure you stay up to date on the latest breaking news and all things Meidas by signing up to the MeidasTouch newsletter at MeidasTouch.com/newsletter.